If you really want to appreciate the success of the lockdown of Abuja, you probably need to be where I am. Where I am is the border between Nasarawa State and the Federal Capital Territory.
Breaking the chain of coronavirus transmission, total lockdown of the nation's capital and Lagos State takes effect.
We had the capacity to test 500 per day. By the end of this week, we'll be at 1,000 per day. By next week, we plan to take it to 1,500 a day.
Nigeria Center for Disease Control traces 5,000 suspected carriers of coronavirus as more Nigerians demonstrate spirit of togetherness to combat the disease. Plus, legal backing gives credence to presidential order on restriction of movement. Good evening. Thanks for joining us on the news tonight. I am Kenen Emma Abodike. Reading with me is Dotun Oguyemi in Lagos, while Ogochukwuka Ona will join us from Benin. Four new diagnoses of COVID-19 have been reported in Nigeria, 3 in Osun and 1 in Ogun. The 4 new cases bring the total number of confirmed cases in Nigeria to 135, with 2 fatalities. The Nigerian Center for Disease Control and Disease currently tracing 5,000 contacts suspected to be carriers of COVID-19 in Abuja, Lagos and Ogun State. Using the window of the lockdown proclaimed by President Muhammadu Buhari, this was disclosed at the daily media briefing by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, where it was also announced that there are presently 135 cases of COVID-19 in the country. That report will come in the course of our bulletin tonight. Now, there is 100% chance of survival for the 81 cases of COVID-19 in Lagos. 33 out of the 66 cases that got infected within Lagos show mild symptoms, while others have moderate symptoms with no patient on ventilator. Amaka Owo reports that this was disclosed at a briefing by the State Commissioner for Health, Professor Ake Abayomi, in Lagos.
Since the outbreak of the coronavirus in Lagos, the state government has remained relentless with strategies in place to contain the spread, with no fatality recorded so far. The State Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, who gave a breakdown of the 81 cases, said the 16 students that returned from the Republic of Benin with no COVID-19 transmission all tested negative after tests were carried out.
Our survival in Lagos so far is 100%. 100 out of 100 are still alive. And out of those patients, we've discharged 8 fully recovered. And we will soon be discharging in the next week as their tests come back negative. Remember, I said we have to have 2 negative tests. Because if you have 1 negative, sometimes you become positive again for a few days before you become fully negative. So just to protect the community, we're making sure that you have 2 consecutive negative results.
The 50 to 60 medical personnel from the 27 general hospitals, private hospitals and volunteers who are concluding training will man the over 100-bed facility at Onikon Stadium. He advised citizens to adhere strictly to social distancing to slow down the spate of spread, as many people with COVID-19 show no symptoms but spread the virus. In Lagos, Amaka O, NT News.
Metaire Iben will now bring us the report on the briefing by Presidential Task Force on COVID-19.
The ritual of temperature checks and observance of hygiene sets the stage for the daily briefing. Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Chairman of the Presidential Task Force, Boss Mustafa, began with an appraisal of day 1 of the lockdown on Abuja as well as Lagos and Ogun states.
There are violations of those restrictions by citizens that we desire to protect. Let me emphasize that the decision to lock down is to prevent community spread, which may be dangerous to manage. Please respect and honor restrictions that have been imposed for the good of our people and our nation.
The updates by the Minister of Health revealed that over 80% of COVID-19 cases in Nigeria are imported, but capacity for management of the pandemic has been stepped up.
We are preparing about 1,000 beds in Abuja to be used immediately as isolation centers if the need arises. More testing sites have been opened in Ibadan and Abakaliki, while existing laboratories are being optimized in their performance.
We're following up about 5,000 contacts across the country. We had the capacity to test 500 per day. By the end of this week, we'll be at 1,000 per day. By next week, we plan to take it to 1,500 a day.
Other ministers in the task force gave sectoral updates and clarifications.
Certain flights that are considered to be essential will continue to happen. Those bringing in food items and other humanitarian supplies.
We're very short on ventilators, so we've engaged a number of countries, and we're hoping that we might be able to source some.
We are also mindful of the fact that this lockdown is going to affect even the urban poor, and this is an area where we're working very seriously to see how we can take this intervention to these urban poor across the country.
The President has approved our recommendations on measures to take to bring some relief to the overburdened custodial centers.
The task force says virology specialists from the University of Ibadan are being deployed to assist with training of more medical personnel in areas of testing, treatment and management of the coronavirus. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has made it clear that test for the coronavirus is free and at no cost at all, and that only results obtained from NCDC-approved laboratories are valid. In Abuja, Mitaire Ikben, NTA News.
World Health Organization says attention has shifted to epicenters in Western Europe and North America, while the pandemic is far from over in Asia and the Pacific. Joyce Ometu brings us details of these and more global updates on COVID-19.
World leaders have now continued to roll out robust measures to halt the spread and to contain the coronavirus pandemic, which has claimed scores of lives. The novel coronavirus has infected more than 800,000 people and killed over 39,000 worldwide. Nearly 175,000 have recovered. Now this is according to the count by Johns Hopkins University. The United States has the most confirmed cases globally. More than 3,000 people have died in the U.S. New York City is the worst hit with over 1,200 confirmed fatalities. President Trump has said the next 30 days could be crucial in the fight to stop the spread of the virus. Africa now has a number of 47 countries affected with over 5,000 confirmed cases, 172 deaths and nearly 400 recoveries. Botswana on Monday reported its index cases after 3 people tested positive. Meanwhile, the former president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Jacques Opango, has died in Paris from complications related to coronavirus. There are signs of hope in Europe as infection rates fall in Italy and Spain, but the death toll remains high for now. The lockdown in Italy has been extended to Easter. Spain, the worst-hit country in Europe after Italy, has recorded 849 new deaths related to coronavirus, the highest number in 24 hours in the country since the outbreak began. And the World Health Organization is warning that the pandemic is far from over in Asia. It is urging governments to prepare for mass infections and warns of a renewed crisis in countries where the situation is beginning to appear to be under control. And that's today's global update on COVID-19. Stay with us for more as events unfold. I am Joyce Umetu.
Abuja, the nation's city center, is on lockdown following presidential directive to further contain the spread of coronavirus pandemic in the country. Abubakar Usman reports on the lockdown enforcement in the Federal Capital Territory.
The presidential directive follows increase in cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria. From the central district areas, the roads linking major institutions of government are shut down as only few vehicular movements were recorded, many of which were essential workers.
When we come to checking point, the police asks of all of our ID cards. We show them before they allow us pass.
In Buhari and some parts of Amak, Saliu Abdullah reports that security agents were in key areas to enforce restriction of movement and enforce citizens' compliance.
If you are not for essential services, I'll turn them back from here. All these ones, as you're seeing, they are going back home. And people walking on the pedestrians, we also turn them back home. These are things we are doing for now. We also move in, as time goes on, shop to shop. If you're not foodstuff shop or pharmaceuticals, will lock down your shop.
The situation is similar at Lube and the Busy Airport Road, where Adebola Brucelin Sunday reports that the road was relatively quiet with obvious reduction in human and vehicular movement. There was, however, no need for brute action in enforcement, as citizens were seen complying as directed by law enforcement agents.
Help us, the essential workers, by maybe providing a vehicle or maybe that can convey us to our workplaces.
I came out, the street was so empty, very unlike our streets. If not that my job is necessary, it's important I go to work, I will stand home. I think that's what we need.
It is expected that as the initial 14 days directive intensified, citizens will ensure total compliance to end the spread of the global pandemic. In Abuja, Abubakar Usman Akwanga, NTA News.
Meanwhile, there is high level of compliance with federal government's directive in the lockdown of the FCT. Hamis Rogo, on a visit to many gateways to Abuja or outside of it, reports significant cessation of vehicular movements and empathy on the side of the people.
In the busy area of Ashokoro, the traffic light is urging the traffic to move on. Conspicuously, there is no traffic to move. It is day one of the lockdown of Abuja, and across most parts of the capital city, the compliance is total. But there are peculiar cases. If you really want to appreciate the success of the lockdown of Abuja, you probably need to be where I am. Where I am is the border between Nasarawa State and the Federal Capital Territory. Now why? This is perhaps the busiest section of the FCT. In fact, there are over 10 states across this line. Amoroba, Maradaba, Yenya, and all the communities that are around there are probably the most highly populated section of the FCT, and they all find livelihood in the FCT. But today, lo and behold, this highly populated area is no longer in this festive movement. But then, of course, you cannot stop livelihood. Across the Maradaba area, you find that the financial institutions are working. But then, potentially, what I appreciate most with this area, apart from the success of the lockdown, is the fact that if you are coming in or you are going out, you will have to be scanned. There are dedicated team of scanners who will scan you to see that whether you are carrying the virus or you are not carrying it. Coming to AYA gives you another picture as well. Well, the same picture of compliance. Moreover, AYA is also a business hub. Not less than 100 persons always find life around this area. Today, the place looks like a purgatory. There are no people there. The compliance is almost 80%. Yes, there are pockets of people coming in and going out, but then it's anything significant compared to what is actually unfolding here when the days are normal. The lockdown has caught up with a significant number of people on transit, but the expectation generally is that in the next few days, the lockdown would be total and will have greater compliance. In Abuja, Mohammed Hamis Rogo, NTA News.
Still on the total lockdown, nightlife in Abuja can be described as vibrant in the real sense, but with the lockdown order of the federal government, What is it like in the metropolis? We now join Joseph Johnson live from one of the busiest spots in the city. Joseph, how busy are relaxation centers generally tonight?
Quite a sarcastic question there, Kenne. But, well, yeah, I'm at a spot somewhere in the area 11 Garaki, where just a few days ago had been a hive of activity. But sadly now, it's more like a ghost town. A typical night about this time, you'd see couples, lovers, friends and families, if you like, gathered here in clusters to socialize and bond and, of course, make merry. But with the lockdown of the FCT, Lagos and Ogun State by the federal government as one of the measures of curbing the spread of the coronavirus, fun seekers and night crawlers alike seem to have complied with that directive by deserting relaxation centers and staying home. This goes further to buttress the fact that it's no longer business as usual. If you look to my left, there is a car park. Usually it's filled with cars, but there is no single car parked right there. And of course, you can see the chairs are packed up. And one thing worthy to note here is the music that usually rends the air here. It's no more. All you hear is silence.
Obviously, you can't talk to anybody there at the moment. That means social life is greatly affected at the moment, Joseph.
Absolutely, absolutely, Kenne. You see, it's a worrisome thing because coronavirus, otherwise called COVID-19, is changing the norms and the way of life of people. And like other nations of the world, the lockdown, although biting hard on social life, is seen as a necessity in limiting the number of the spread of the coronavirus. But it is believed that in no distant time that all this too will pass. And of course, life will be back to normal.
Thank you, Joseph.
Okay, yes, I have someone here with me. Just a minute. Let's just get to talk to him. Sorry, can you tell us your name?
My name is Kelvin Essen.
Look at the camera, please.
My name is Kelvin Essen.
Okay, so are you one of the, what are you here? Is this a place that you control?
I am the CSO of this garden, the controlling security aspect.
Okay, so how would you describe it looks like a ghost town here. Business is not booming as it usually is. So how do you feel?
Actually, the place locked down because of the instruction of the president about COVID-19. So all of us are feeling it, and
Thank you, Joseph.
We are enjoying it right now so that the sickness will
Thanks indeed, Joseph. We can see you talking to somebody, at least explaining things out for us further on this situation. Joseph Johnson at one of the busiest spots in the city at the moment. Now, the Namadi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, has joined other airports across the globe on a total lockdown to contain the spread of coronavirus. Emmanuel Ayimiro reports that 6 other airports in the North Central have also complied.
Starting from the presidential wing, which is to my far right of the airport, and then to my far left where you have the cargo section, the international terminal, and now the domestic terminal, you will hardly hear the sound of any movement of an aircraft due to the suspension of all flight activities as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. This has affected enterprises all over the world. As a matter of fact, an estimate by the International Labour Organization says that an average of 25 million jobs will be lost all over the world, with an antecedent $3.5 trillion loss of income. Narrowing this down to our own airport, largely affected by this shutdown, you will realize that the Namadi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, has a lot of linkages with hotels and tourism.
You can see the bubbling Namadi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, is cool and calm.
after the suspensions of all flight operations into the airport. Our staff on essential duties are available, are around in case of any emergency. It's what is available in all the 7 airports in the North Central region.
Now that the airport is temporarily shut down for another 1 month, are there efforts by the federal government to carry out disinfection of the airport before it reopens?
Today, we handle the certification of the Namadi International New Terminal. We also go to the domestic terminal and the general aviation terminal and do the same.
The emptiness of the airport, starting from the ticketing section to the check-in counters and immigration, remind me of when the terminal building was newly constructed, waiting for takeoff. Emmanuel Ayemiro, NTA News.
In the meantime, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has described questioning the legality of the presidential order restricting movements in the Federal Capital Territory, Lagos and Ogun State as unnecessary, explaining that the action taken is not only important but very well backed by extant Nigerian laws. A press release by Laolu Akonde, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity in the Office of the Vice President, describes the steps by the President as proactive, very relevant and important, and backed by a Quarantine Act of 1926 published in all of the laws of Nigeria. Vice President Osinbajo said the act allows the President to designate any local area in any part of the country as a place that may be infected or under the threat of a communicable disease and could then make regulations of any kind. The Vice President said the Act is a regulation that gives the President powers, and these powers come from the National Assembly, stating that the governors have extensive powers under the same Quarantine Act. Ahead in the news, lockdown situation in Lagos as groups donate salaries to fight COVID-19. Details after these messages. Welcome back. We told you earlier that 8 new diagnoses of COVID-19 have been reported in Nigeria. 3 in Abuja, 3 in Osun, 1 in Lagos, and 1 in Ogun. The 8 new cases bring the total number of confirmed cases in Nigeria to 139, with 2 fatalities. Now, flight operations at the domestic wing of the Lagos airport have been suspended in compliance with the order of the lockdown placed by the federal government as part of measures to curb the spread of COVID-19. Dotun Oguyemi reports from the domestic wing of the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos.
The road leading to the airport is devoid of the usual heavy traffic. Getting to the airport was an easy breezy affair. The lounge was quiet, without the blaring loudspeakers announcing flight schedules, no airplane roaring in takeoff or landing, and of course the passengers at home complying with the lockdown directive. As the federal government continues to monitor closely the COVID-19 situation in the country, the Federal Airport Authority say activities here was shut down since last week Thursday, and no airline or flight operations have been taking place since then. The gates are under lock and key, and even some operators or motor vehicles who have come have been turned back. Even the commercial drivers who run car hire services and a few airport staff who dotted the airport premises say they showed up to monitor the situation on ground and ensure compliance. In Lagos, Dotun Oguyemi, NTA News.
We now join Dotun live in our Lagos studios for more reports. Hello, Dotun.
Thank you, Kene. Lagos Island and most parts of the metropolis are devoid of their usual hive of activity and traffic jams. Jennifer Igwe, who visited some parts of Lagos, says many Lagosians are complying with the 14-day lockdown directive by the government.
New face of Lagos.
a dramatic transformation from its usual hustling and bustling. No honking by frustrated motorists or hawking by street traders. Victoria Island, busy commercial and often hectic areas on the mainland, such as Surulere, Okota, and the Apapa Oshodi Expressway, were shadows of their usual bustling look. For essential workers, getting to their duty posts was a daunting task.
I don't have a personal vehicle, so there is no vehicle around that can take me there. That's why I'm still standing on the road.
How long have you been standing here?
I've been here for like close to an hour.
Roadblocks by security personnel is helping to ensure that only people with appropriate identifications are on the roads and about their duties. In Idumota on Lagos Island, one of the busiest markets in Lagos State, having people to stay indoors is quite difficult because many around here live in their stores and clustered buildings all around. I have with me Mr. Rolly, who lives in this locality, and I noticed that most people are on the streets. Why?
Yeah, the people went on the street because we have some big houses in Idumotas, and even though in the houses like 20-30 people that are living in the houses, but their problem is that there is no food to eat. If government can provide food for them, it will be very easy for them.
For some in this area, all they know is street life, and sending them away from the streets indoors for their own safety will be quite challenging in the next 14 days. In Lagos, Jennifer Igwe, NTA News.
And a few hours to the commencement of the shutdown of Lagos State, in line with the directive by President Muhammadu Buhari, residents have been assured of the availability of petroleum products throughout the period. The licensed 1,780 fuel stations across the state will sell at the approved pump price of 125 naira per litre. Amaka O has details.
The supply and distribution of petroleum products are among the list of essential services exempted from the shutdown order. These officials from the Department of Petroleum Resources are carrying out their designated role of ensuring compliance and availability of products in the days ahead.
There's enough fuel to go around, even in these trying times. We've gone to about 2 stations now. They are all selling, and they are selling at approved price of 125 naira per litre. So we are doing the surveillance to assure the public that there is no need for panic buying. There will be sufficient fuel even within the period of lockdown. The petroleum industry is exempted.
Some operators of fuel stations visitors say they are prepared for effective service delivery throughout the lockdown.
Since the price changed from 145 to 125, we start selling immediately at 125, and we have enough stock. As of today, we have our 68,000 liters.
Our staff is always here, so we are going to operate throughout the lockdown. No stopping. We close at our normal time. We resume very early in the morning, as early as 5 a.m. We are on, and we close by 12 midnight.
Mario, Daniel, and Patrick Obian were our customers.
When I see the price, I'm very happy. My tank is filled up now, because that 25 don't used to fill my tank, but now the tank is filled up.
I think it's 125, the reduced price, normal price.
The Department of Petroleum Resources says the general public should report defaulters who do not sell at the approved pump price of 125 naira by calling this mobile number. In Lagos, Amaka O, NTA News.
And that's it from Lagos. It's back to Kene in Abuja for the continuation of Network News.
Thank you, Dotun. Well, we're still not done with petrol around the country, as the lockdown ordered by President Muhammadu Buhari exempts petrol stations and tanker drivers as essential service providers. Lydia Sampson visited some petrol stations and now reports.
A drive around the Abuja metropolis reveals that most petrol stations are open for business, mostly patronized by essential service providers.
When we are sure that we can access petrol, the movement becomes easy for us.
Some customers that came, some of them are doctors, task force.
On hand to monitor and ensure enforcement, the Department of Petroleum Resources was at some filling stations where the managers say they have adequate petroleum products to discharge.
What is your opening stock this morning?
We open with 33,000 liters.
33,000 liters?
Yes, sir.
and you are still discharging. Yes.
Different strokes for different folks, it appears. While some commend the lockdown, this station manager is bothered about how it may be hindering his staff from reporting for duty.
Having some of the security men on the roads, when you show them your ID card, you are going to a filling station, you are working in a filling station, they say no, the federal government did not approve filling station.
The Department of Petroleum Resources nonetheless says it will not hesitate to seal petrol stations violating the presidential order to open for business or those hoarding.
So we should not do panic buying of any kind. There is availability of the product. Depot are working, the sales is ongoing, so there is no cause for alarm.
President of Petroleum Tanker Drivers Salimon Oladiti, in a phone interview with NTA News, says their members will work 24 hours throughout the lockdown.
In a time of emergency like this, we have to summon courage and do our job our best, and we have equipped our members with kits. We are on 24 hours essential services presently, as we are talking now.
As the lockdown continues, it is obvious that not only violating petrol stations will incur the wrath of enforcement agencies, but also those who violate the stay-at-home order to curtail the ravaging virus. In Abuja, Lydia Sampson, NTA News.
The Mike Adenuga Foundation, established by business mogul Dr. Mike Adenuga Jr., has donated the sum of 1.5 billion naira to government to support Nigeria's fight against the coronavirus pandemic. The sum of 1 billion naira was sent to the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN), coordinating efforts to raise funds from corporate bodies to support the initiatives aimed at combating COVID-19 in Nigeria, and another 500 million naira to the Lagos State government, which has recorded the majority of the cases. Executive Vice Chairman of Globacom, Bella Disu, has presented the 500 million naira check to the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, in Lagos, while a representative of the foundation presented the check of 1 billion naira to the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele. In addition to the financial contributions, the foundation said it will continue its ongoing efforts to assist various bodies and institutions in the country with the supply of essential items like sanitizers, face masks, test kits and respirators, among other necessary requirements to combat the pandemic. As part of its own response to ensure the safety of Nigerians while the pandemic lasts, the Mike Adenuga Foundation advises all to take measures to ensure their safety in line with the guidelines provided by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, and the World Health Organization. The Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, has tested negative to coronavirus pandemic. In a statement, the IGP received the results of the test on Tuesday, having submitted samples on Friday. Other officers who also tested negative include the Force Public Relations Officer, DCP Frank Gamba, the Principal Staff Officer to the IGP, DCP Idowu Owohunwa, Head of the Force Technical Intelligence Unit, DCP Lanre Ogulowo, Personal Physician to the IGP, CSP Dr. Nonye Wele, Medical Officer, Police Clinic, Force Headquarters, Abuja, CSP Dr. Titus Adebite, Secretary to the IGP, SP Moses Jolobo, and 5 other close aides to the IGP, while noting that policing is a high-contact job with its attendant risks. The IGP enjoins police officers nationwide to adhere strictly to all precautionary and safety measures in the course of their day-to-day activities. He equally enjoins the public to obey all restriction orders put in place by the constituted authorities. A total lockdown became necessary to stop the spread of coronavirus in the country, but while many are kept indoors, there are those on the front lines providing essential services. The question is, how well are these group of people armed with the personal protective kits against this contagious disease? Doindia takes it out from there.
Silence, an ambience similar to that of an election period. Sadly, there's more than that. a total lockdown of major streets and suspension of social and business activities, all to chase out a common enemy, the coronavirus. These bid outfits such as these becomes the order of the day. However, not all those expected to be armed with such protective equipment use them. But why is it so?
I don't tell. Since morning.
Why did you remove it in the first place?
Because I've used it for too many times, so I remove it and I've not seen another one to use.
I have my own face mask in my car in the office.
If you get exposed as you are not wearing your
my prayer is that I will not get exposed in Jesus' name.
Since the outbreak of the coronavirus in Wuhan, China, the World Health Organization has sustained its global campaign on possible spread of the deadly disease if not well managed. Having close contact is inevitable, and that is why we also need to look at measures put in place to ensure that while people come in contact with each other, they don't stand the risk of contracting the COVID-19. The National Center for Disease Control has also taken this message to the street using all available mechanisms. Experts, however, warn that there could be a more devastating effect if those expected to serve the rest of the country are not well harmed. In Abuja, doing Dia NT News.
And still on empowering essential and vulnerable workers, members of Rotary Club District 9125 Abuja have joined other spirited individuals and groups to donate free hand sanitizers and face masks to vulnerable Nigerians as part of efforts in curtailing spread of the coronavirus pandemic, also known as COVID-19. Kenneth Nanim reports.
Health workers and media practitioners are amongst the essential service providers exempted from the restriction movement order by President Muhammadu Buhari, and by the nature of their job, they are also vulnerable to the coronavirus pandemic.
In this regard, the members of Rotary Club District 9125 of Abuja donated free hand sanitizers and face masks to the staff of Asokoro District Hospital and that of the Nigerian Television Authority.
We reckon that NT is one of the essential services providers, and we felt that since they'll be here working, we are providing them, we are arming them with the tools that will keep them safe.
You know, our reporters are out there in the field all the time, and we'll need these sanitizers, face masks as we go out, you know, to bring the news as it is to the people.
The free distribution of hand sanitizers and face masks continued in the AYA area of the FCT. These categories of citizens whose means of livelihood depends on their daily activities are considered vulnerable, and they are also target for the free items.
Everybody should obey the NCDC rules, the guidelines that have been given, because the only way we can stop this scourge is staying at home.
You see that most of them commute along this road, and it's not everybody that can actually afford this.
The Rotary Club District 9152 of Abuja believes this sort of love will motivate others to contribute to their quota in the effort to end the coronavirus pandemic in the country. Kenneth Nanim, NTA News.
Time for another break. Business news and more when we return. Thank you for staying with us. Aminanu James looking pretty here to bring us business news. Hello.
Thank you, Kenneth. Despite the federal government's 14-day restriction of movement in Abuja, Lagos and Ogun states, the Nigerian Stock Exchange has sustained remote trading amidst COVID-19 pandemic. The equities market on the last day of the month of March recorded marginal declines, with the OSHA index losing 0.14%, while market capitalization dropped to 11.1 trillion naira. 422 million shares valued at 1.724 billion naira were traded in 3,448 deals. Sterling Bank, with a whopping 303 million shares, topped the activity and was trailed by a distant Zenith Bank and GT Bank. GlaxoSmithKline, Mayer and Baker, NEM Insurance gained the most in that order, while the flip side was led by Lotus Halal, Jais Bank and Ikeja Hotels, also in that order. In the meantime, the Central Bank of Nigeria says it will suspend check clearance temporarily as government begins the coronavirus shutdown. The bank in a circular says it was in furtherance to its efforts to ensure hitch-free clearing and settlement activities effective March 31st, 2020. This development is coming just as the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, in a joint statement by the Apex Bank, says skeletal staff in finance management system and money market would be maintained to ensure online transactions are not put on hold. And while Nigeria has earned $32.36 billion from the oil and gas sector in 2019, a 55% increase on $20.99 billion it gained in 2017. This information is contained in the latest oil and gas industry audit report by the Nigerian Extractive Industry Initiative, NAITI. A breakdown of the 32.63 billion earned in 2018 shows that company-level financial flows into government coffers were 16.6 billion, while flows from Sales Federation crude oil and gas amounted for 16 billion. The report reconciled payments by 71 companies and the LNNG that met the materiality threshold set for the exercise. 8 government entities were also covered by the audit. And for our next report, we join Caleb in Jos. Hello, Caleb.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Jos. Plateau State Police Command has assured citizens of its determination to enforce every government directive to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. This was at a media briefing in Jos following reports of violation of government directive in some worship places. Rinred Sylvanus Lord has details.
Since last week, the public domain has been agog with videos of some worship centers violating government directive of not having more than 50 persons in a hall and a 2-meter spacing. Following this violation on Friday, leader of Jibwis, Sheikh Yahaya Jingir, has been invited to the police headquarters.
There had been a directive by the federal government and the Plateau State government that had not been known to us officially, but it had now been made official to us. And so that had been appreciated and understood and cleared.
We called him for a meeting with the Commissioner of Police, Plateau State Command, in respect to what happened on Friday last week. And he has warned that gathering in either mosques or churches should not be more than 50, and the leaders of churches and mosques should adhere to the directive of the federal and state government and to ensure that their members are well spaced.
The command further advises the public to observe the restrictions and measures aimed at containing the spread of the virus. From the police headquarters, Rinred Sylvanus Lord, NTA News.
And we get back to Abuja with Kene.
Thank you, Caleb. Bauchi State records another confirmed case of coronavirus. Chairman, Bauchi State Task Force Committee on Outbreak Response and Deputy Governor of the state, Senator Babatella, disclosed this while briefing newsmen in Bauchi.
Another 55-year-old man has tested positive to coronavirus disease. He is the 3rd case recorded in Bauchi State among the 99 samples tested so far. Deputy Governor and Chairman Task Force Committee on Outbreak Response, Senator Babatella, says the state is intensifying contact tracing and surveillance and is clinically and physically ready to contain the spread of the virus.
We now have a 3rd case of infection. So we now have 3 cases, 2 of which, by the grace of God, will soon be discharged.
He, however, appeals to federal government to assist the state with testing kits, as the process of taking samples to Abuja is cumbersome. Commenting on the patients on quarantine, he remarks that they are stable and have shown no symptoms of the disease so far. The state presently has 4 isolation centers of 150-bed capacity at the Infectious Disease Hospital, Bayara, 80-bed capacity at the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University Teaching Hospital, Specialist Hospital Bauchi, and Federal Medical Center Azari in Bauchi. Bulak Afsa, NTA News.
As the world responds to the containment of the spread of COVID-19, ministries, agencies and bodies in Nigeria have begun to donate to complement the efforts of the federal government in reducing the spread of coronavirus. Elizabeth Omari has details of the donors.
Nigeria's 43 cabinet ministers have donated 50% of their March 2020 salaries to support the federal government's efforts to combat the coronavirus pandemic in the country. A statement by Segun Adeyemi, Special Assistant to the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, says the gesture is in solidarity and support for the federal government's efforts to tackle the disease. Minister of State for Transportation, Senator Gbemisola Saraki, is coordinating the donation, and she believes this will facilitate an early resolution of the coronavirus pandemic. Similarly, the Nigerian Senate has announced the decision by senators to contribute 50% of their salaries to the efforts to respond to the spread and treatment of coronavirus in Nigeria. The acting spokesman for the Senate confirmed this in a statement, stressing that it would take effect from March 2020. The statement explained that this monthly contribution from the Senate will be sustained until Nigeria is declared safe from the ravaging disease. Meanwhile, members of the House of Representatives have also resolved to donate their 2 months' salary to the fight against coronavirus in Nigeria. Speaker House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila says, starting from the March salary, the donation will be directly transferred to the National Relief Fund account to support provisions for the welfare of frontline medical professionals, health workers, and other interventions for the welfare of all Nigerians through this trying period. The House called on the Central Bank of Nigeria to, as a matter of response measures, direct cash grants to the 774 local governments in the country towards providing food and other essentials to at-risk individuals and communities. Meanwhile, the body of permanent secretaries headed by the head of civil service of the Federation in its effort to assist the federal government to curb the spread of COVID-19 has donated items to be used for personal and home hygiene. The head of service, Dr. Folashade Yemieson, during the presentation said permanent secretaries contributed a large chunk of their salaries to get the items. The items have been handed over to the federal government through the chairman of the COVID-19 Presidential Task Force, Boss Mustafa. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, who took charge of the items, promised that the items will get to the targeted beneficiaries. Similarly, the National Health Insurance Scheme, NHIS, has affected the immediate release of funds for the payment of capitation and fees for service for its enrollees for the second quarter, April to June 2020. A statement by NHIS indicates that the move is to guarantee uninterrupted access to healthcare services by enrollees of the scheme as the nation grapples with the spread of COVID-19.
And that's Network News Tonight. Thanks for watching. My name is Kenan Ima Abodike. Good night.